What happens when the most powerful nations on Earth collide in public, exposing their weaknesses for the entire world to see? For a brief moment, the air in Alaska carried more than cold wind. It carried tension so sharp that the entire world paused to listen. It wasn't just a diplomatic meeting, it was a confrontation that revealed cracks in the mighty and opened doors for the overlooked. And hidden within that moment was a message far deeper than politics, a lesson about strength, balance, and the quiet rise of those who wait for the right time. This is why that meeting did not simply concern the U.S. and China. It concerned the world. And it revealed why India's power is no longer a dream for tomorrow. It is a reality unfolding today. Think about it. When two giants clash, the noise captures attention, but the noise is also a distraction. While America and China exchanged words sharp enough to wound reputations, something else was happening. The world was looking beyond the clash. It was searching for stability, for someone who did not tremble with insecurity or shout with aggression. And what emerged was not another giant flexing its muscles, but a steady voice rising from the background. That voice belonged to India. The Alaska meeting shook the world because it showed that even the strongest can stumble, and when they do, others have a chance to rise. For decades, people assumed the global stage would always be dominated by two forces, the United States with its power of influence and China with its aggressive expansion. But when they revealed their flaws so openly, a third path was suddenly visible, a path built not on arrogance, but on balance, a path shaped not by noise, but by trust. This is where you must pay attention, because the same principle applies to your life. The world respects those who stand firm when others lose control. It respects the one who does not need to shout to be heard. India's power is growing not because it demands attention, but because it has earned it. And you, too, can earn respect in the same way. The reward of patience, composure, and quiet strength is that when the storm rages, people look for the calm. So why should you stay with me and listen until the end? Because this is not just about politics, not just about nations battling for dominance. It is about how power shifts when balance is broken. It is about how the strong reveal weakness and how the overlooked rise by embodying qualities the world is desperate for: stability, trust, and clarity. By the end, you will understand not only why India's power was boosted by this meeting, but also how you can draw the same strength in your own battles. What shook the world that day can awaken something greater within you today. When nations face one another in a contest of power, what is truly being tested? It is not just military strength or economic numbers, it is psychology. Power is not only about resources, it is about perception, about the silent messages sent through tone, posture, and the choice of words. In Alaska, what the world witnessed was not a negotiation, but a battle for dominance of the mind. America and China did not simply speak. They attempted to assert control, to show who would stand taller in the eyes of the watching world. And yet, while the clash was loud, its deeper meaning was quiet and subtle. It revealed that when rivals lock horns, the real beneficiary is often the one who stands apart, observing, waiting, and learning. This is why India's rise in that moment was so profound. While two powers were consumed by the need to prove themselves, India demonstrated the strength of restraint. Human psychology tells us that when conflict arises, the bystander who remains calm often gains the most respect. People look to them for clarity, for steadiness, for a way out of the chaos. The same principle plays out in our daily lives. When others lose their composure, when tempers flare and voices rise, the one who can remain centered commands quiet authority. That authority is not demanded. It is granted by those who witness it. Power struggles are fueled by insecurity. The louder one shouts, the more it exposes a fear of being ignored. The more aggressively one pushes, the more it reveals an anxiety of being overlooked. Yet true strength never comes from proving. It comes from embodying. It comes from standing so firmly in self-belief that you do not need the world's approval to validate your worth. India's quiet presence amid the storm was not weakness, it was the ultimate display of psychological power. You must understand that what shook the world was not the words exchanged in Alaska, but the truths they exposed. The giants were not invincible. Their dominance could be challenged not by greater noise, but by greater steadiness. And this is the same truth available to you. When others fight for attention, you do not need to join the chaos. Your value is revealed not by volume, but by presence. The strongest people are not the ones who fight the hardest, they are the ones who no longer need to. This is the path of transformation, to rise without shouting, to lead without demanding, to win without crushing. The Alaska confrontation was a mirror for the world, showing us that real power does not come from aggression or arrogance. It comes from balance, composure, and unshakable confidence. And the one who masters these qualities, whether a nation or an individual, inevitably becomes the one others turn to when everything else begins to collapse. When a leader reveals frustration, the illusion of control begins to slip. The world does not simply listen to words, it studies tone, posture, and the energy behind every sentence. In Alaska, when America's voice carried irritation instead of composure, it sent a signal far more powerful than the message itself. It showed uncertainty. It showed vulnerability, and for a nation that built its image on unshakable strength, even the smallest crack was enough to raise doubts in the minds of allies and rivals alike. Power is fragile when it depends on perception, and once perception begins to shift, an empire's aura can fade faster than anyone expects. This is the psychology of authority. When a figure once seen as untouchable reveals impatience, people start to question if they were ever truly as strong as believed. Authority is not destroyed in one moment, but it weakens each time control is lost. This truth is not limited to politics. It applies to every human being. If you cannot hold your ground under pressure, people will notice. If you let emotion overtake wisdom, your power diminishes in their eyes. The world respects composure because composure is rare. Anyone can speak with passion, but only a few can maintain clarity when tested. America's slip was not about a loss of military might or economic influence. It was about psychology. It was about showing frustration when calm was expected, about revealing defensiveness when confidence was required. That is why the moment mattered so deeply. It shook the world's faith in the giant, and once faith begins to erode, respect follows. For India, this shift was a hidden advantage. While others watched a superpower struggle with its image, India stood untouched, steady, and quietly gaining trust. The void left by weakness became space for another to rise. Think about what this means for you. Life constantly tests you, pushing you into situations where frustration seems natural, but the way you respond determines whether others see strength or weakness. If you allow anger to dictate your words, you reveal insecurity. If you remain composed, you project authority. This is why discipline is the foundation of power. Not discipline over others, but discipline over yourself. When you master your emotions, you master how the world perceives you. What happened in Alaska was more than politics. It was a reminder that strength built on image alone can collapse when tested. True strength must be rooted deeper. It must live in self-control, in the ability to stand calm in the storm. India's rise was not about speaking louder, but about letting others speak themselves into doubt. That is the art of silent strength, and it is the same art you can master. Because when others lose themselves, the one who remains grounded becomes the leader everyone searches for. Aggression often pretends to be strength, but in reality it exposes fear. When China used harsh words and confrontational tone in Alaska, it was not projecting confidence, it was projecting insecurity. The psychology of overcompensation is simple. When someone pushes too hard, it is because they are trying to cover what they lack. The louder the display, the more it reveals a hidden weakness. The world did not admire this aggression. It grew uneasy. It saw not stability, but volatility. And when people sense volatility, trust disappears. Without trust, even the strongest force cannot hold others close. Human nature rejects domination. When someone tries to control too much, we instinctively resist. This is the principle of reactance. Push someone hard enough, and they will move in the opposite direction. China's tone created exactly that effect. Nations began to pull back, to reconsider their alliances, to question whether standing too close to such force was wise. Aggression can win fear, but fear does not last. It is a temporary leash that eventually snaps. What people truly desire is reliability. They want strength that feels safe, not strength that feels dangerous. This is why the Alaska meeting became a turning point. The world had to ask itself, who can we trust when tempers rise and stability matters most? And in that silence, the image of India grew brighter. India did not need to raise its voice or make a scene. Its strength was visible in its restraint. Its credibility was built not on intimidation, but on balance. This is the kind of strength that lasts, the kind that others willingly follow, because unlike fear, trust binds people willingly and deeply. Think of your own life. How often do you encounter people who use aggression to mask their insecurity? They shout to be heard. They demand to be respected. They control because they fear being overlooked. At first, they may appear powerful, but soon their energy drains those around them. People distance themselves, not out of respect, but out of exhaustion. Compare this with the person who stands calm, speaks with measured words, and chooses dignity over noise. That is the person others gravitate toward, not because they are forced to, but because they want to. The world is tired of force without wisdom. It is tired of conflict without vision. That is why aggression may win moments, but it cannot win the future. The Alaska confrontation exposed this truth. China's show of power backfired, creating more suspicion than respect. And in that gap, India's calm and balanced approach became not only visible, but necessary. The message is clear for nations and individuals alike. Those who rely on force reveal their weakness, but those who embody balance reveal their true strength. And in a world shaken by noise, it is the quiet strength that rises the highest. True power does not always announce itself. Sometimes it moves quietly, steady, and deliberate, until one day the world realizes it has become impossible to ignore. That is how India began to rise in the aftermath of Alaska. While two giants fought for dominance, India's silence spoke louder than their words. It was not the silence of weakness, but the silence of composure. It was the presence of a nation that did not need to prove itself through noise, because its strength was already alive in its actions, its resilience, and its steady growth. There is a psychology behind this kind of strength. People are drawn to those who can stay centered when others are losing control. Silence in the midst of chaos signals confidence. It tells the world that you are not shaken by the storm, because your roots run deeper than the winds that try to uproot you. India's calm was not passive. It was powerful. It was a signal to every watching eye that this nation was prepared to lead by example, not by intimidation. This is the kind of energy you must carry in your own life. Too many waste their power trying to be noticed, raising their voices, forcing recognition. But the truth is, real recognition comes to those who no longer chase it. When you build your foundation so strong, when you refine yourself so deeply, your presence becomes undeniable. You do not need to tell people who you are. They feel it. That is the same principle that positioned India in the global mind. While others argued, India's quiet rise was noticed more than their noise. Understand the psychology here. Composure commands, patience attracts, balance inspires. When you stand firm in silence while others lose themselves, people begin to wonder what gives you that strength. They begin to trust you more because you are not swayed by emotion, not desperate for approval, not trembling under pressure. India's rise was not just geopolitical. It was psychological. It showed the world that calm strength will always outlast aggressive noise. You must realize how valuable this lesson is. In your relationships, in your career, in your struggles, you will meet people who try to pull you into chaos. They will provoke, they will shout, they will compete to prove themselves louder. Do not waste your energy in their game. Stand in the quiet confidence of who you are becoming. The world will always respect the one who resists the pull of chaos. The one who rises without noise is the one who truly rises. The Alaska meeting became a symbol of this truth. As America revealed frustration and China showed aggression, India revealed composure. And that composure became power. It became influence. It became recognition that could not be ignored. Remember this, in silence there is strength, and in balance there is victory. Those who master both will always be the ones who rise above the noise of the world. Trust is the rarest currency in the world, and it is also the most valuable. Nations rise and fall not only on weapons or wealth, but on whether others believe they can be relied upon. Aggression may win fear, but fear is fragile. It collapses the moment a stronger force appears. Trust, however, builds bonds that last, bonds that cannot be shaken by intimidation or force. This is why India's presence after Alaska carried such weight. It was not the loudest voice in the room, yet it was the one others began to notice, because in its steadiness there was something more powerful than threat. There was reliability. Psychology reveals why this matters. Human beings are wired to seek safety before anything else. We gravitate toward people and leaders who make us feel secure. When America showed frustration and China showed hostility, security was lost. Doubt crept in. But in the same moment, India's restraint carried a different message. It told the world, here is a nation that can listen, that can engage without hostility, that can remain firm without losing control. This perception planted seeds of trust, and once trust takes root, it grows stronger than fear ever could. This lesson is not only for nations, but for you. In every relationship, in every opportunity, the question is not only whether people respect you, but whether they trust you. Do your words align with your actions? Do you stay grounded when pressure rises? Do others feel safe relying on you? These are the qualities that elevate individuals above the crowd. Anyone can impress for a moment with charm or power, but trust makes you unforgettable. It makes others want to keep you close, not because they have to, but because they choose to. Trust is built through consistency. It is created when your actions match your principles, even when it is difficult. It is strengthened when you refuse to betray your values for temporary gain. This is what India demonstrated to the watching world. By not falling into the trap of aggression, by not reacting with hostility, it showed discipline. And discipline builds credibility. Nations, just like people, want to connect with those who stand on solid ground, because in that stability, they find security. The Alaska confrontation was a test, but not only for the ones who shouted, it was a test for everyone watching, to see who would emerge as dependable when the air was thick with tension. And in that test, India quietly earned what others were losing. It earned trust. The same principle applies to you. Do not chase recognition through force. Do not demand respect through fear. Build trust and respect will follow. Create reliability and influence will multiply. Fear fades, but trust lasts. And when the world is shaken, people will always turn to the one they trust most. When trust begins to form, attention naturally follows. The world cannot ignore the presence of someone who embodies calm strength while others collapse into conflict. That is why, after Alaska, global eyes started to turn toward India with a different awareness. It was no longer seen only as a participant on the sidelines, but as a nation capable of anchoring balance in an unstable order. Recognition is a powerful force. Once people see you differently, their expectations shift. They begin to listen more closely, to seek your perspective, to measure their steps against yours. This is how influence grows, quietly at first, then undeniably. Psychology shows that recognition transforms not only how others view you, but how you view yourself. When you are finally seen, when your worth is acknowledged, your confidence deepens, you no longer feel the need to prove, you simply become. For India, the sudden global focus reinforced its role as more than a rising economy or a regional power. It began to be perceived as a stabilizer, a voice with the credibility to bridge divides. And when the world starts to believe in you, the energy of that belief multiplies your reach. Recognition is fuel for influence, and influence shapes destiny. This truth applies to your life with equal intensity. Many people spend years overlooked, their efforts unnoticed, their voices unheard, but the moment consistency meets opportunity, recognition arrives. It does not come to those who chase it desperately, but to those who prepare in silence, who remain steadfast when ignored, who continue to build value even when unseen. When recognition finally comes, it carries weight because it was earned, not demanded. And once people see you differently, you must rise to meet that vision with even greater integrity. India's growing recognition was not accidental. It was the result of years of building credibility, of choosing patience over provocation, of standing firm in its identity. This moment in Alaska revealed what had already been true. It simply forced the world to acknowledge it. The same is true for you. Recognition is not created in a single event. It is revealed when the right moment exposes the strength you have been cultivating all along. That is why you must never stop preparing, even when no one seems to notice. Silence is not absence. It is the space where strength is formed until the right time demands it. The shift of global eyes toward India is a reminder of what happens when preparation meets timing. The world was searching for stability, and stability was found in a place many had underestimated. This is the path for every individual who feels unseen today. Your recognition will come, not by shouting louder, but by becoming stronger. The world will eventually turn its eyes toward you when it realizes that you are the one who can be trusted to hold steady when everything else begins to fall apart. The strength of India's rise comes from something unique, a position that allows it to stand between worlds without being consumed by either. It carries the wisdom of the East rooted in culture, tradition, and resilience, while also carrying the spirit of the West shaped by democracy, innovation, and openness. This balance gives it a power no other nation can replicate. In a world divided by extremes, India represents integration. It does not have to choose between influence from one side or the other, because its identity is already a fusion of both. That balance is its greatest weapon, and in moments of global tension, it becomes the bridge that others desperately need. Psychology reveals the value of integration. The strongest personalities are not those who deny one side of themselves, but those who learn to harmonize contradictions. A person who can be both gentle and firm, both humble and confident, both patient and decisive, carries a depth that single extremes can never achieve. This is the same principle that makes India's position so powerful. Where others polarize, it unites. Where others dominate, it balances. Where others force, it adapts. And the world notices because the mind naturally trusts what feels whole more than what feels fractured. This principle should ignite something within you. Too often, people believe they must choose only one identity, one path, one expression of strength. They suppress parts of themselves to fit an image of what they think power should look like. But true power comes from integration. When you can combine patience with action, compassion with firmness, ambition with gratitude, you become complete, and completeness is magnetic. People are drawn to those who embody balance, because balance creates safety and inspiration at the same time. India's growing role is not about rejecting one side of the world to embrace another. It is about holding both with equal strength and showing that they can coexist. This lesson carries into your personal life with tremendous force. Do not deny the parts of you that seem contradictory. Instead, find the higher ground where they can meet. Your discipline does not have to kill your creativity. Your ambition does not have to erase your peace. Your strength does not have to silence your kindness. The more you integrate, the more powerful you become, because integration creates wholeness, and wholeness is unshakable. The Alaska meeting showed the chaos of imbalance. America and China revealed extremes that left the world unsettled. In contrast, India revealed balance, and that balance became power. This is the deeper truth. Balance is not passive. It is active strength, the ability to hold steady when pulled by opposite forces. When you embody balance, you are no longer controlled by the extremes of others. You become the bridge, the anchor, the center point others can trust. And in a divided world, whether global or personal, the future will always belong to the one who can unite where others divide. The lesson hidden within India's rise is one that speaks to every individual who feels tested by life. When others are loud, when conflict surrounds you, when pressure tempts you to lose control, your greatest strength is the ability to remain calm. This calm is not weakness. It is mastery. It is the mastery of yourself. Nations gain influence in the same way people gain respect, by showing composure in the face of chaos. The world trusted India because it displayed what so few could, steadiness. The same power is available to you if you choose to cultivate it. Psychology proves that people are drawn to those who stay grounded under fire. We instinctively seek leaders who do not waver when storms rage because they give us a sense of safety. You have the ability to become that anchor in your own life and in the lives of those around you. But to do so, you must train yourself not to react impulsively. Anger may feel powerful, but it is only a mask for fear. Impulsiveness may feel bold, but it usually exposes insecurity. True strength is restraint, and restraint is not silence. It is intentional control over your words, your actions, and your energy. Every conflict around you is an opportunity to reveal this strength. When provoked, you can choose not to mirror the chaos, but to rise above it. When dismissed, you can choose not to beg for recognition, but to let your consistency speak louder than any demand. When others try to trigger you, remember that the one who loses composure loses authority, but the one who holds composure gains influence even without trying. This is the essence of India's example, and it is the path available to you. Calm does not mean you lack passion. It does not mean you tolerate injustice or stay silent when your values are tested. Calm means you respond with clarity rather than impulse. It means you channel your energy into action that builds instead of reaction that destroys. It means you understand that dignity is louder than shouting, and patience is stronger than aggression. People will test you, life will test you, but every test is a chance to practice mastery. And each time you choose calm over chaos, you rise higher in the eyes of those who watch, and more importantly, in the eyes of yourself. India's rise was a reminder that real influence is not earned by overpowering others, but by embodying what they cannot. You, too, can embody what others lack. Be the balance in the room of extremes. Be the voice of reason when others scream. Be the presence of composure when others lose themselves. In doing so, you will discover that power is not about domination, but about self-mastery. And those who master themselves inevitably become the ones the world cannot ignore. The discipline of self-mastery is not a skill reserved for a select few. It is a power available to anyone who dares to claim it. The reason most never access it is because it requires patience, consistency, and the willingness to confront oneself without excuses. The world is full of people who can control others, but very few who can control themselves. That is why the one who disciplines their own mind stands apart in every room they walk into. Others may have louder voices, but your silence will command attention. Others may rush to prove themselves, but your composure will reveal a confidence they cannot imitate. When you decide to master yourself, you separate from the common patterns of weakness. You stop living in reaction to what others say and do, and you begin to live from intention. This shift changes everything. Instead of chasing validation, you become the source of it. Instead of seeking power in external things, you anchor it within yourself. People will sense this energy even without words. They will feel the steadiness in you, the calm that comes from self-control, and they will respect it because they secretly wish they had it themselves. The mind is like a battlefield, and every thought you entertain is either strengthening or weakening your control. If you let anger take root, it grows. If you feed insecurity, it consumes you. But if you train your thoughts toward clarity, discipline, and calm, your mind becomes unshakable. This is not an overnight change. It is the result of daily practice. Every time you choose not to lash out, every time you choose patience over haste, every time you choose strength over surrender, you carve deeper pathways of control into your character. That is how mastery is built, through repetition until it becomes who you are. The world is filled with distractions designed to pull you away from this mastery. People will bait you into arguments, circumstances will push you toward fear, and life will tempt you with the illusion that quick reactions equal strength. But you must remember that true strength is not about speed, it is about depth. The tree that grows tallest is the one with the deepest roots, not the one that rushes upward without a foundation. If you want to be unshakable, you must grow roots of discipline that nothing can uproot. The reward for this path is freedom. Freedom from being controlled by your emotions. Freedom from the opinions of others. Freedom from the noise of the world. When you reach this level, You no longer live as a prisoner of circumstance, but as the master of your destiny. And those who master themselves will always rise above those who try to control others, because the highest power a human can hold is sovereignty over their own mind. That is the level where you must aim, because once you arrive there, no force on earth can move you. When you stop being ruled by impulse and begin operating from clarity, you awaken a power that very few ever access. This power does not shout. It does not need to be announced, and it does not seek recognition. It simply radiates in every decision you make, every word you choose, and every step you take. The greatest victories are not the ones you win in front of others, but the ones you win within yourself. The moment you resist the temptation to break your own standards, you become stronger than the person you were yesterday. Each silent victory builds a foundation that no one can see, but everyone can feel when they stand in your presence. Strength is not about never feeling anger, doubt, or fear. Strength is about feeling them fully and refusing to let them dictate your actions. Anyone can act on emotion, but it takes mastery to hold it, channel it, and release it only when it serves a higher purpose. This is why those who control their emotions gain an aura that others cannot explain. They move with precision while the world stumbles in chaos. They stay calm in storms that break others. They make choices from alignment, not reaction, and that is why they never collapse under pressure. Every time you pause before speaking, every time you choose discipline over impulse, every time you refuse to be dragged into negativity, you are not just making a small decision. You are rewriting your identity. You are shaping yourself into someone who cannot be broken by noise, someone who cannot be manipulated by fear, someone who cannot be swayed by approval or rejection. The world bends to those who bend themselves first, because once you prove you can master your inner chaos, the external world no longer has leverage over you. Most people will never know this freedom because they confuse control with suppression. Suppression hides emotion. Mastery transforms it. Suppression locks energy inside. Mastery channels it into strength, into calm, into power. To suppress is to live in denial, but to master is to live in truth. And when you live in truth, nothing can destabilize you, because truth does not depend on circumstance. It remains unshaken regardless of what changes around it. The day you realize that nothing outside you has power unless you give it power is the day your life transforms. No insult can define you, no loss can destroy you, no rejection can break you, because you have already decided who you are. You have anchored yourself in a level of strength that is not conditional. This is the rarest form of power, the kind that does not come and go but remains because it was built within and not borrowed from the outside world. Once you reach that state, you no longer chase control, you embody it. You no longer demand respect, you attract it. You no longer fight for peace, you become it.